Okay. Good. All right, this which we started was actually inspired by what we're learning now.
Okay.
It's in different words, a different approach, but the principle is the same. We are on the second line on page Kuf Nun Hey. In the middle of that line, we're up to that point. Never explained the phenomenal super principle that the idea lekis, the divine knowledge of the creation and all that is in it, which is instrumental in creating all of that. But, and yet, the creation that results has a profound element of independence. And as we discussed, Emma points out, this is a kind of a contradictory situation. It's contradictory not only because this comes from here and it becomes independent and it has its own perspective, but it's contradiction because its whole ability to know and understand and be is in constant flow. It's due to its connection to its source. Like we said yesterday, any creature that does not sense its connection to its source is a non-entity. It behooves us to reflect on this principle. The reason it behooves us to reflect on this principle because this principle has tremendous influence in our daily life, in our Veda. And it purifies our whole lifestyle, life process. The simple means to to define it, it's extremely simple, but it's accurate. And it's accurate across the board in that particular sample and throughout the entire creation. And that is, we already spoke, a tree grows out of the ground. It's rooted in the ground. Then it grows up and becomes a full-fledged tree. It speaks for itself. To our untrained eye, it would appear that this tree has all that it needs for its own survival on its own, independent of its source, independent of the ground. But then we all know that this tree becomes dissociated from the ground. It very quickly, very soon dies, and very soon it dries up and it loses its life element. This principle, so we have a very simple physical way of explaining it. Because the tree is rooted in the ground. The root draws sustenance, elements, minerals from the ground, and this gives the tree its being, its life. This is, excuse me, true. It's true on a very low level, the very low level aspect of the tree's being. As we spoke, and this is something even on an emotional level, it's almost endless what you can focus in and bring out. An apple tree produces apples. Now these apples that it produces, apples, we know what apples are. In addition to the apple having its content, its physical content, its shape and so forth, the apple also has seed in it. The seed represents the continuity. The seed represents saying that this is not the end of the story. I am an apple, but I'm also a future apple tree. And here, so it's an extremely simple illustration of the fact that we all know what this is. It behooves us to reflect on the totality of this message. Let me step up for a second and explain. When we say it behooves us to reflect on the totality of this message, the reason that there is such a thing, a totality of this message, is that this whole phenomenon is not a natural development. The whole phenomenon is due to the fact that it is divine creation. And what is the meaning of divine creation? We already spoke about it. Divine creation means that it is perfect. The fact that the tree produces seed is not an add-on to the tree. The fact that the apple has seed is not an add-on to the apple. It's a primary definition of what an apple is. How so? An apple can be without seed. A tree can be without an apple. So all of these things that we can go on and pointing out are sourced in the principle. That when we look at the tree, we're looking at the bottommost of its presence. That which is undeniable on the physical world level. But we are not meant to look at things from a physical perspective only. If we apply our intelligence, our insight, that's what we insight. What does the seed mean to the apple? Where does the seed come from in the apple? The truth is, if we eat the apple, the seed is a nuisance.
Sound effects.
So what is the meaning of the seed in the apple? The seed is part of the definition of what the apple is. How so? Make it brief because inevitably we come to an end of time. We say that the seed is there in order to reproduce another apple tree. How is that part of the definition of an apple? So to jump across and to bring out the statement that I'm aiming on, let's say, the entire world, even going down to the most physical part of what world is really a divine creation. Divine, we already attempted to give it a handle, a definition. And the principle of divine is, so we always say divine means perfect. What is the implication of the word perfect? I'm always making the example, a carpenter builds a table. He's an expert carpenter. And you can call it a perfect, it cannot be perfect. A table consists of X number of pieces, and these pieces are glued together with certain material and so forth. Eventually, it has to shake up. There's no such thing as a perfect human creation. Temporarily, it can hold, but perfect means something that is self-sustaining. It doesn't have any need for self-sustaining. Bring two pieces of wood together, they don't hold on to each other. There's always something in between that holds them together, and that something in between can dissipate over time. Why so? Because these two pieces of wood are brought together on the practical level, the functional level, not on the conceptual level. What does it mean on the conceptual? On the life level. I always point out, a table produced by an expert carpenter is first projected in the carpenter's mind how he wants the table to be. And I asked this question many times. Do you think that this expert carpenter who draws from his insight, from his talent, the principle of what the table should look like, and how the table should stand and so forth, Do you think that when he produces a table, it presents completely and perfectly that which he projected in his mind and in his soul? We all understand that that's not possible. Because in his mind, the table is not put together from pieces. In his mind, the table is not how it holds together, how it stands. In his mind, the table is what its neshama is. Neshama is not a put together element. This neshama element, this is what we call the divine element in everything. Why is there a divine element in everything? After all, the human being invents a table. And I'd like you to come with me. The answer to these questions, to this question and such as we continue on, is that the world as is the Mephis's creation. In the creation projection that the Mephish created the world, he has included in that idea, in that projection, anything that can be developed from within the world itself. Everything that the most progressive inventor comes up with is included in the original divine concept of the table, what our world is. Were it not for that divine spirit, he would not be able to bring it forth. And if he brought it forth, it would be lopsided. It would be a table that would shake from any side, because it doesn't have a reality behind it. Like we say all the time, you enter a room, and the room has tables and chairs. Even though the room initially is the four walls on the ceiling and the floor. The tables and chairs are add-ons, but they fit into the room perfectly. Nobody says, who came here and disturbed the perfection of the room? On the contrary, everything that is in the room, the tables and the chairs, are complementary to the room. They're not intruders, they're not blocking, so to speak, the straight path. I forget the word. They are actually representative and revealing what the room is all about, to begin with. That beginning, that is a Neshama spirit. That Neshama spirit is what gives it a reality. This is what's called the divine aspect in everything that exists. So we spoke about the phenomenon that everything comes to be, everything is created from Hashem's idea, Hashem's knowledge, which means Hashem's identification of what the world should be like. And then when this creation comes into being, especially the human being, he can go ahead and choose his own path and start acting seemingly independently of his creator's definition. And he can even act, it would seem, opposite of the Creator's wishes. Where does that come from? This ability for him to choose his way, even opposite in different ways than the Creator projected or gave him the perspective, that is part of the perfection that the Creator created.
Mm.
This we already discussed. To put it, in so to speak, in words, it means that when the Creator created everything in the world, he focused on the human being. He created the human being in his image. He made the human being not fragile, that he is not an entity unless he's being supported. He gave him his all. And thus a human being begins to develop the world almost from scratch. The world that he develops has almost no trace, no similarity to the world he started with. That is a very superficial view of it. In truth, the world he started with contained everything that ultimately develops in the world. And all development in the world is inspired by the world that Rebbe created, the initial creation. And this is what we've learned, that the human being is a complete being, although he is completely supported by the koyach eliki that makes him. This koyach eliki gives him a full-fledged presence. Full-fledged presence means that he becomes sort of independent in his own mind. And he begins to develop his own path, his own sense of what he is and where he wants to go. This is the principle of Bechira. And this Bechira is inspired and empowered by the idea, by the divine knowledge of this creation. This divine knowledge is what provides for it its sense of reality and its completeness, its independent ability. And then he turns around to the extent that he declares his independence in an absolute say, I'll do my own way. I'll deny the source where I come from. This thing that I can deny the source where I come from, that implies the supreme refinement of the idea itself. It's called the idea behefdich, Havdalah. And we discussed the Havdalah. It's an important union to the extent that we can possibly understand it. Knowledge to us means Proper knowledge is when you get close to the object and you examine the object directly. That is knowledge. This is knowledge as it's reflected by us. And this is knowledge, knowledge is developed by at our level. Here, this is a table. I have no idea what the table is, how it was made. How do I get to know it? I approach it, I examine it, and I know how it was built. This is knowledge as defined on the worldly level. Whether it's a table, or it's a sun, or it's a moon, or a star, you're constantly giving definitions to all of these heavenly beings, which are really much removed from anything that we can possibly understand, as we discussed in the last couple of days. I always use daylight as a catalyst for this concept. We think daylight is light coming from a fire. And we all know how short-sighted that is. Daylight is there because Hashem wants that it should be light, period. Even as in the first day's creation, Hashem said, let there be light. Exactly that same way, there is daylight after the sun and moon were created. And we already discussed, I want to bring it back here in our current. Deal with Delis means it's a knowledge that is not based on examining the object that you are studying. Deal with Delis, it's a knowledge that's based on where it's coming from. Why is it there in the first place? Who invented it? That's a deal with Delis. This idiom of Dallas, this ability for us, please reflect, us little human beings should have the ability to have things, idiom of Dallas, to know things independently of examining the things. Know things from what is called a divine and a truth perspective. This is the divine gift to the human being. This is why the human being is called B'tzalmeinu Kidmuseinu. He is divine. And this is why the Torah has given such broad and fixed rules for the human being's behavior. Do not defile the holiness that was put into you. You think that all of your talents and all of your capabilities are world level capabilities. Not that, misunderstand, false. Every one of you moved, every one of you action, every words, speech. This is a divine presence in you. Doesn't belong to you altogether. This so to speak, justifies the restrictions that Hashem has put on the human beings. Says, hey, you behave this way. You have to reflect in your behavior, your creator. You think the week is, every day is a day, every morning is a morning. The reason you have to reflect your creator in your actions, in your lifestyle, is because the creator is what actually makes you be what you are. It is your creator spirit that you are working with. Your wisdom and talent doesn't belong to you per se. But it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to you. He gave it to you. But it is not part of what you are as a created entity. As we know from the creation of men. When Hashem created human being, Hashem said, let us make man in our form and our likeness. And then he went on to fulfill this plan. And what did he say? He made man off of min ha'adama. He formed his body off of adama, dust from the earth. This dust from your reflected a human appearance, human body, completely perfectly. This is the end of what a human being gets from the world. That's it, that summarizes his root in the world. Where do you see, what does it mean, summarize the root in the world? I want to develop this, we should reflect. When he created Adam from the earth, he created a perfect structure, beautiful. Every limb was perfectly formed. It was a human being that was created on the earthly level. This is what the earth is able to produce in terms of a form. You can create a perfect form using exclusively materials drawn from the earth. This is the end of what the world provides for. The next step in the creation of man, the Torah says, Hashem blew into his nostrils a soul of life, or a breath of life. This breath of life is not drawn from the world. It's not a world level presence. It's a divine level presence. This is something which is completely of a different ilk, of a different level completely. There is no way that from a world, in a worldly context, that you can begin to define and understand what is this breath of life. This breath of life is not part of the structure that Hashem made from the earth. The earth does not provide for it, is not able to sustain it. This is literally a divine presence in the human being. Thus, again, what's its time?
7:22. We have just a few more minutes.
1 minute?
Another 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. This whole discussion, I've broadened that, is to kind of reveal the meaning of these words in the Maimer. The idea is Muvdalas Be'erech, Mudili is in a different context, a different category, and it does not at all compel him in his actions. Because in fact, this little human being, as we are looking at him, we are seeing the earthly part of the human being. The divine part of his being, we only see in his function. We don't see it with our flesh eyes. That is a totally independent, superior presence. And it's not dependent on the container of the body to provide for it.
It does seem like ultimately it will compel the human being because it's a call, it sets a standard.
It's what?
It's a calling, it sets a standard to which man eventually lives up. In the meantime...
Wait a second, you're going too fast. Man eventually lives up. This is a misunderstanding. Let me explain to you what I mean. Man eventually lives up is a statement that implies that after years, when you see a human being for thousands of years behaving a certain thing, you say, oh, that's proper human behavior. This is what a human being is. Please, my dear friend, think history.
No, the opposite, that he will make his choices as a so-called independent individual, thinking that he can run things as he wants, but ultimately the idea that's completely Muvdal leaves an imprint and provides a guidance to which he eventually reaches.
The Bechira that people historically chose as totally contradictory to the definition of a human being.
That's what I'm saying.
So where does he get that from?
Well, that's what we said at the start of the Shiur, that he sort of imagines himself independent and then imagines he can construct things by his own, to his own liking or by his own standards, which is a fake, a false impression, ultimately. Even though he does have real independence, but it's not.
Okay, well, here we have to put a little bit of a qualifier. When human beings behave like animals, they're not behaving like human beings. The fact that they're able to do that is not part of the definition of a human being.
The word perfect was used before. And it does seem like humanity is being called to live up to or go towards that standard.
Perfect, that's right. What standard? That's why I said,
yeah.
The standard is that it represents a divine presence. When human beings behave the way they behaved in the last century, they don't reflect that standard at all.
Yeah.
Those things were not invented based on human choices. Those standards were developed. What? Okay, that's it. Gentlemen, I'm not going to hold you.